You know, I always kind of had this picture in my head of private investigators, like something straight out of Hollywood, you know?
Yeah.
Like all trench coats and smoky back
Oh,
rooms.
yeah, I get it for sure.
But getting ready for this deep dive into PIs in Kenya has been really eye-opening. Like
Yeah,
it's so much more interesting and honestly way more relevant to like everyone than I ever thought.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, what's really interesting is that Kenya doesn't have one specific law just for private
Oh,
investigators.
really? Huh.
Yeah, their work is actually governed by a bunch of different laws, all kind of working together.
So like a patchwork.
Exactly. Yeah, the
Sure.
Constitution, the Data Protection Act, the Penal Code,
Wow.
all these things come into play.
So it's not as easy as just, deciding to become a PI. There's like
Forever.
a whole legal web they got to
Yeah,
navigate.
exactly. You can't just
Yeah.
hang up a shingle and say, I'm a PI.
Uh-huh, right.
There are definitely rules.
So then what can they actually do legally? What kind of
Well,
stuff falls under their, official scope of work?
well, it's surprisingly broad.
Okay.
Background checks are a big one.
Background checks, like for like suspicious spouses, that kind of thing?
Well, that's definitely part of it,
Yeah.
but it goes way beyond that.
Okay.
We're talking verifying information for business deals sometimes, like vetting potential employees,
Uh-huh.
even just ensuring someone's personal safety, you know?
So like due diligence in
Exactly.
all different aspects of life?
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And then another big part is locating missing persons.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about like all the digital stuff nowadays? Does that come into play?
Oh, absolutely. In our digital age, digital forensics is becoming huge for PIs,
Okay.
like analyzing devices, recovering deleted data, tracing online activity.
It's getting kind of high tech.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little more like that Hollywood image I had in my head.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I imagine like with those tools, there's got to be rules too, right? Like where they draw the line between, what's okay and what's not.
Oh, for sure. You're absolutely right. It's a powerful set of tools.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why there are such strict limitations.
So like what? Like give me an example.
Okay, well, trespassing, for example.
Trespassing.
Yeah, that's totally off limits.
Oh, okay.
It's a fundamental violation of privacy, and Kenya's constitution is very clear on that.
So no sneaking onto someone's property or planting listening devices without permission.
Uh-huh. Nope.
That kind of bursts my spy movie bubble.
Yeah, but unauthorized surveillance in general is a big no-no.
Like wiretapping.
Wiretapping hidden cameras, accessing someone's accounts without their consent.
Makes sense.
That's a major legal and ethical problem.
And I'm guessing there are serious consequences if a PI gets caught doing that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Like what?
Well, for one, they could face criminal charges.
Wow.
But also, any evidence they found illegally would be thrown out in court.
Oh, so it's not even useful.
Exactly. It's just bad all around.
It's not just about ethics, then. It's practical, too. Okay, that's all really helpful, and it's starting to give me, like, a much better idea of how this all works,
Good.
But let's shift gears for a second.
Okay.
And think about our listener for a minute.
Sure.
Let's say you find yourself in a situation where you need to hire a PI.
Happens more than you think.
Really? Okay,
Right.
well, then where do you even begin?
Well, first thing is always verification.
Okay.
You got to really check out their credentials.
Like, what are you looking for specifically?
Well, do they have a background in law enforcement? Or maybe some kind of related security field?
Okay.
Are they licensed? Registered with a professional organization?
So don't just take their word for it.
Right.
Do your homework.
Exactly.
What else?
Reputation is huge.
Okay.
Look for reviews,
Yeah.
testimonials, anything that gives you an idea of how they work and how professional they are.
Oh, yeah, like seeing what other people have experienced?
Exactly, and don't hesitate to ask for references.
Okay. Good advice.
Yeah, you want to be thorough.
I bet word of mouth is pretty important, too. Hearing from people who've actually worked with the PI before.
Oh, absolutely. Referrals from trusted sources can be super valuable,
Yeah, that makes sense.
but you should still do your own research, just to double check and all.
Got it. Trust but verify.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so let's say you found someone who seems legit. What then? Like, is there a contract or something?
Oh, yeah. Always get everything in writing.
Okay.
A contract that lays out the scope of the work, the fees, any confidentiality stuff.
So everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. That protects both you and the PI.
Makes sense. No hidden surprises.
Right.
Okay, so now I'm kind of curious about who actually hires PIs.
Yeah.
Like, it's not exactly something people talk about at parties,
True. But it's actually a pretty diverse group.
Okay.
A lot of times it's individuals facing, like, tough personal situations,
Okay.
like suspected infidelity or child custody disputes,
Oh, yeah.
or even searching for a missing loved one,
Those are some serious situations.
right? And those are the times when people really need that kind of help.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then on the other side, you have corporations.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they use PIs all the time.
For what?
Well, things like investigating fraud, making sure employees are following regulations,
Okay.
protecting their intellectual property, that kind of
So
stuff.
it's like a whole range from personal stuff to big business?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay. That's really interesting.
And, we were talking about PIs staying within the law earlier.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if they don't?
Right. Like, what if a PI crosses the line? What can you do?
Well, there are a few options.
Okay.
For serious stuff like harassment or threats, you'd want to go to the police.
Right.
But if it's more about invasion of privacy, then maybe talking to a lawyer is a good step.
Okay.
And if you think there's been a data breach, you'd contact the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner.
So there are ways to hold them accountable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good to know.
But let's focus on the positive for a minute. Like, what are the benefits of hiring a PI when everything's done right?
Yeah, when it's all ethical and legal.
Right, exactly.
What can people expect?
Well, one of the biggest things is peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Yeah, think about those examples we talked about, like missing persons or infidelity suspicions.
Yeah.
A good PI can dig up information and provide answers, and that can really reduce a lot of stress and worry.
Just knowing the truth can be a relief sometimes.
Exactly. And in legal cases, PIs can be really helpful too.
Oh, how so?
Well, they can gather evidence that'll hold up in court.
Right, cause illegally obtained evidence is no good.
Nope, it's got to be done the right way.
So it's not just about finding information, it's about finding it legally.
Right.
That makes sense. What else?
Well, PIs also just have skills and resources that most people don't.
Like what?
They can access databases, they know surveillance techniques, they have special investigative methods.
Oh, so it's like they have a whole toolbox for finding things out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, I get it. It's like having a specialist on your side.
Ex-
That's really interesting. Thinking about all the different types of cases they handle,
yeah,
it really makes you think about the ethical side of things.
it's true.
Like, where do you draw the line between needing information
Right.
and respecting people's privacy?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is, and it doesn't seem like there's an easy answer.
It's definitely a tough one, and the line's always shifting, especially with all the new technology.
Yeah, all the internet and social media stuff makes it so much more complicated.
It really does. We're seeing all these new tools pop up, facial recognition software,
Huh.
powerful data analysis techniques.
It's crazy.
It is, and the potential for both good and bad is huge.
Like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess that's why it's so important to have laws and regulations to keep things in check
Absolutely. We need strong rules to define what's okay and what's not.
and to make sure PIs are held accountable.
Right.
And I guess public awareness is important too, so
Yeah.
people know their rights and the risks involved,
Definitely knowledge is power, especially in this kind of situation.
so people can protect themselves.
Exactly. And they can demand responsible practices from the industry.
I see. So you're saying that people need to be informed.
Yes. Very informed.
Okay, so I gotta ask then, with all this new technology and with more and more people needing information, what do you think the future holds for private investigation in Kenya?
Well, I think we're going to see more and more specialization.
Specialization.
Yeah. Like certain areas are going to become even more important.
Okay.
Digital forensics, for example.
Right, with everything being online.
Exactly. And we might see more PIs focusing on specific things like finance or cybersecurity.
So instead of being a jack of all trades, they'll be more like experts in their own niche.
Right. Exactly.
And I guess that means they'll need even more training and certifications to stay on top of things.
For sure, both for their skills and for ethical conduct.
Wow, this has been so eye-opening.
Good. I'm glad.
We've talked about so much, the laws, the practical stuff, the ethical side, the future of the profession.
It's a lot to cover.
It is, but before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about peace of mind.
Yeah.
You mentioned that as a big benefit of hiring a PI.
Right.
But I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about that. Like, what are some other ways that PIs can bring peace of mind?
Well, one thing that people don't always think about is the sense of agency that a PI can give back.
Agency.
Yeah, like let's say you're a victim of fraud or identity theft.
Okay.
You feel violated, helpless, you don't know what to do.
Yeah, that would be awful.
It is,
Yeah.
but a PI can step in, investigate, and maybe even recover what you lost or expose who did it.
So they're like taking back control for you.
Exactly. They're putting the power back in your hands.
And that can be really powerful.
It can be incredibly healing and reassuring.
It's like having someone in your corner.
Yeah, someone who understands the situation and can fight for you.
Wow, this has been such an insightful conversation. I can't believe how much I've learned about this whole world.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is, and it's made me think a lot about the ethical questions you brought up.
It's important to consider those things.
It is like, where do we draw the line?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, where do we draw the line between, needing information and respecting someone's privacy? It's tough.
it really is. And it's even trickier now with information being everywhere online.
Right.
The internet, social media, data brokers, it's all just out there.
Yeah, and so easy to access.
Exactly. So that's why it's super important to find a PI who understands those boundaries, you know?
So even if I have a good reason for wanting information, it still matters how the PI gets it.
Absolutely. The ends don't justify the means.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
something you should always talk about with any PI you're considering.
Okay.
Ask them how they do things and make sure you're comfortable with it.
It's like, I need answers, but not at any cost.
Exactly. You have to feel good about how the information is gathered.
And I guess I can always back out if I start to feel uncomfortable, right?
Absolutely. You always have that right. Don't be afraid to say something.
Okay, good to know. Wow, this has been such a fascinating deep dive.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I really have. We've gone from like those Hollywood stereotypes to a much better understanding of how PIs actually work in Kenya.
It's been a journey.
It has. And what's really clear is that when it's done right, ethically and legally, this can be a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like it can help people and businesses deal with some really tough situations.
It's about getting people the information they need.
Exactly. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it's not always about uncovering secrets or catching someone doing something wrong.
Right.
It's about clarity,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about helping people feel in control again and giving them peace of mind.
That's a great way to put it. I think that's a powerful message for our listeners.
I agree. Well, huge thanks to you for sharing all your knowledge and walking us through this whole thing. It's been amazing.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of PIs in Kenya. We hope you learned something new and that it gave you something to think about. And if you'd like to learn more, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. Until next time, stay curious.